Nagarathar Chamber of Commerce. Sail to prosper.
So we do this consumer education campaigns. Every year we do something called a Freedom from Pesticide campaign. And so around the Independence Day. So we talk about dangers of pesticide and why people should use organic. And international markets, our goal always was to sell the brand, but we had to start somewhere. So initially we started with mango pulp, pineapple juice, those kind of products in bulk we used to sell to a lot of customers. Then little bit spices, then nuts, soya. This were the route initially to. So obviously we couldn't start exports initially because we realized that if you have to export, then you also need to have a steady supply base and certain quality standards to fulfill. So for 3 4 years, we focused only on the domestic market. We started our exports in a very small way in 2007, and 2008 onwards it picked up. And so the biggest challenges in international marketing is one is understanding the opportunity and the customer and the country statutory requirements. Because if you are not able to do this properly, then obviously you don't have a strong value proposition. Then after that, convincing customers. Typically, it has taken us almost 2 years to even build relationships and then get to from, let's say, first contact to orders. A lot of times it's 1 year and mostly it is 2 years. So that way, I think you have to have a lot of patience in developing this. And of course, over a period of time, we have made sure that our supply chain is dependable and robust. And initially, when we started with the brand, initially we didn't get much success, both in Europe and US. We failed actually because we started getting into the main stream supermarkets in these countries. Then we realized that one is as an organization at that point of time, we were very small. We didn't have the resources to invest and sustain. So then I think after a few years, we crafted a strategy because one advantage is we have Indians almost across all the countries in the world. So we said, let's start developing our own ethnic customer base in these countries. So with that, I think we were able to, one is build a loyal customer base, generate some revenues, then understand the regulatory environment, make sure that we fulfill all that. So today, like in US, we set up our own company, our own distribution centers. We started with the ethnic market, Indian stores. Now I think we are present even in Kroger, Walmart, and Safeway with number 1, 2, and 3 chains, supermarket chains in US. So I think that's how we have done. Yeah. So today, that way, I think 24 Mantra brand is sold in 50 countries. About 30 countries we export directly. Balance, it goes through different market, different routes without our knowledge, but it's available in about 50 plus countries. And there are not many brands which have this kind of presence, even very established brands. The other big challenge was building the ecosystem because I think organic is still new, fairly new. A lot of people didn't know. We have to educate the regulators, the agriculture ministry, commerce ministry, shape the certification standards, and also educate the research institutions. Initially, I think for many years, the entire Indian Council of Agriculture Research was against organic farming because they said if we promote organic farming, we are going to compromise food security. So we had to educate them, and then with lot of after a lot of convincing, they started their own trials. And today they come back and said that for except 2 or 3 crops, most crops, organic farming is competitive or even better than conventional farming in terms of yields and productivity and costs. So it's been a huge effort. We have done a lot of it individually in groups. We have also formed the industry association called Association of Indian Organic Industry, which is apex body, which does licensing with the government, and then a lot of other education efforts. Then we have to develop vendors, particularly for processing, because as I said, farming we do directly because directly in the sense we work directly with farmers. Then we have to educate customers and build confidence in them about the organic products, etc. So all this we had to do parallelly while building the business because it's something completely new. Then the other big challenge was building the right kind of team because ultimately a company is as good as your team members. If your team members are not committed or not capable, don't have the right skill sets, then you can't last. So I think it was a huge challenge, first initially convincing people to come and join. And of course, no one knew anything about organic. So we have to train all our people in organic agriculture. Then we have to also recruit people who had the right attitude and who are committed to making a difference, to positive difference to people. Because we are more like a evangelical organization, because we are going and then teaching people to change for the better in terms of better food, etc. So someone has to be very convinced about doing this. Otherwise, then they will not have that kind of strength and sustenance. And of course, we have to still pay compensation, reasonably good compensation, because if you pay too low, no one is going to stick around. We have to work on retaining these people. And then now today, I think most of our middle management, or from the initial team which we recruited in 2006-7, most of them are from that. We have been able to develop and groom them. So that gives a lot of stability for us. Yeah. So in summary, I think for building a food and agri business, see, unlike your e-commerce businesses or tech businesses, where I think the winner takes all, agri business is not like that. It's going to take a lot of time, lot of effort. So, and then it'll also take a lot of time to build. So I don't think we should be in an unnecessary hurry saying that, oh, if I don't do today, someone is going to grab. So you have to do it slowly, steadily. And then we have to find unique solutions which make sense for the local communities, because each region is different, the motivations are different. So what I talk with farmers, of course the broad principles are the same, but the specifics will always vary from Andhra to Tamil Nadu to, let's say, Maharashtra or MP or Rajasthan. So in Tamil Nadu, also southern Tamil Nadu, we have about 20,000 acres under farming. Yeah. And we have to figure out ways to develop the brand. See, if you go the traditional brand building route, then it'll be very, very expensive, and a startup. And we are seeing some of these new age companies like, it, of course, now we are profitable, but I think these companies are losing 60, 70 crores every year. And that is not something sustainable, because everyone gets carried away by all these e-commerce businesses where you lose more money, that means more valuation, etc. So we have to figure out our own unique way of low cost doing this. Then we have to develop alternative channels like our own stores, etc., which we did. Then build a team with the right values, because your team is your strength. If you are able to get the right people, build the right value and culture, then it's going to last a long time. Because my dream is that this business should survive for many, many generations, whether I am there or not. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to do. And then if it is a new kind of business, then we have to also build the ecosystem, educate the regulators, educate other stakeholders in the ecosystem. Yeah. So I think that's little bit about our business. I believe agriculture today has got a lot of potential, and a lot of new business models are coming. One, of course, is because of labor problem, mechanization is a big issue. And obviously, given the small farms, it's not affordable to own a lot of machines. So one is, how do you pool machines and lease machines like a Uber or a Ola? That is one business model. Second is, I think you have a lot of drones which are getting developed. So today, I think if you are able to lease and hire drones to do spraying, etc., on crops. Third, precision agriculture is a huge thing. Anyone with 10, 15 acres, can we come up with low cost models? In fact, as we speak, we are working with a small startup in Bangalore who have come out with the smart farming sensors. So we are looking at working with them on pilots and see how we can scale this up even in dry land areas in a very low cost manner. So that's what we are working. So similarly, as I said, we use mobile apps for all our staff. Now we are trying to see how we can embed intelligence into these apps by integrating local weather data, etc., into this. So there's so many opportunities like this which are evolving. And obviously, the agri-eco procurement system itself is very fragmented. So still there are opportunities for consolidating and doing this. So I guess there are a lot of opportunities. And this is a business, I think, which is slow and steady. Obviously, we can't be too slow, but we have to be reasonably balanced, make sure that rather than talking about saying that I'm going to lose money and then I'll get valuation, saying that in let's say a year's time, 2 years time, how do I become profitable? In our case, it took us about 13 years to become profitable, 14 years to become profitable. But that was because we are building a new business, we are building a new ecosystem. Uh, so it took that long, but then I think we have been able to do with much very fairly low investments in that sense. So I think that's it from me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can you please switch off your screen sharing, Raj?
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, we have several questions.
Yeah.
Okay, the first question is from Ms. JR. I am in need of raw materials like turmeric, red chili. Can I get it from a farmer or any lead for this?
See, I think there are certified farmers or farming groups operating across the country. So I don't know if there is, let's say, any database which will give. But I think one way is the Tamil Nadu Agriculture Department also has a certification agency. One way is to approach them and find out if there are any certified farmers near your area. And then if there are there, then you can look at it. So that's one way to contact easily.
Okay, so there's a question from CK. Why do organic food cost more than so-called regular food? Can we get to a point where organic food can cost the same as regular food, or is it impossible?
There are three, four elements. One is, I think, organic, the cost of cultivation comes down by about 5-10%. And in rain-fed areas, we are able to get to normal yield in a few years' time. But in irrigated areas, there could be still some loss of yield. That's one. And in organic farming, what happens is the farmer needs to spend a lot more time. So let's say instead of applying 5 bags of fertilizer, buying and applying 5 bags of fertilizer, you have to generate 5 tons of organic manure, which will require a lot of effort. Similarly, organic farmer has to be very proactive. He has to go and then make sure that he's taking a lot of preventive steps, because if there is a huge infestation, then there are not many tools to control the pest and disease. So it requires a lot more effort. And today, I think even a farmer values his time. And unless you are willing to compensate more, why will he want to put that effort? Most farmers, for their own home purpose, they mostly do organic. But when it comes to the market, unless they get an incentive, why would they do it? So one is that. Second is, today obviously the market is small, so the supply chain is a bit longer. So that's why the costs are higher. But I think over a period of time that will come down. But there are a few costs which you can't avoid, like fumigation, because you produce most crops once a year or a few crops twice a year, and you have to store it. And if you have to store it like we do in cold storages, otherwise normally everyone stores in normal dry warehouse. Cold storage, the cost is some 5-6 times more. Second is we have to treat this. We don't do any chemical fumigation. We do modified atmosphere. In chemical fumigation, you put this chemical and then cover it for 24 hours, it's done. In our case, we have to do for 15 days. So there's a cost to space and other things, right? Third, our packaging material has to be much better quality. Otherwise, we can't give the shelf life, right? And fourth, what is happening is today the retailers take about 10% extra margin compared to conventional. Uh, so I think these are the costs. So some costs like this extra margin to retailers, hopefully when it becomes mainstream, that extra margin might come down from 10 to 5%, and a little bit your logistics cost can come down. But paying additional to the farmer, this additional treatment costs, and similarly, like you take typically dal, most of the conventional mills, what they do is they add 4-5% water. So the weight goes up. Whereas we don't do that, because if you do, your shelf life will come down and we can't preserve properly. So I think some of this are unavoidable. So I believe that there'll always be, if you have to do genuinely organic and make sure that everyone wins in the ecosystem reasonably, so you still have to charge about 30%, 25 to 30% premium. So today, I think, as I said, 40-45%. So there is a scope to bring down that 45% to perhaps 25%, but it is a question of economies of scale and other things falling in place.
Okay, now we have a question from Mr. Ampa Palaniyappan. How can we use technology in reducing pilferage in farming from remote? And he has a couple of more questions. Can we do organic farming when your neighboring farm is inorganic? Can we do organic farming in hill plant cultivation?
See, one is in terms of pilferage, I think it's primarily, again, every time weighment and then monitoring. So we have video cameras, etc., kind of thing. But generally, I think it's more like any normal business. Unless, except other than the video cameras, or if you are able to tag every bag with a radio tag, etc. That's the only way to kind of control pilferage, which I believe, if you have proper processes and system, is not such a big issue. But I think the important other question you talked about, can you do farming if your neighbor is not organic? So I think there are two things. One is there should not be water flowing from a conventional farm to organic farm, because then your soil gets contaminated. They should not be spray drift, in the sense someone is spraying pesticide, then it should not come onto your crop. So one is obviously farm water flowing one field to other field in project areas, delta areas where you're dependent on major project, it becomes difficult. But otherwise it should be okay if it is like tube well or normal well irrigated or rain fed areas. The second thing is spray drift. For that, I think one is basically we need to have barrier crops, either any tall crop or let's say some trees across the boundary, so that the spray drift doesn't fall. Otherwise, what we also do is we do some border crops, like let's say I'm growing paddy. So I might grow some 2 rows of maize along the border, so that if there is a spray drift, it doesn't come onto paddy. So those are the measures we do. In our case, what we do is we do group farming. So we go to a village, we try to convince 50, 100 farmers, so that they kind of the chances of this contamination is minimized. Then I think hill farming, definitely organic is very conducive. But basically what you have to do is, in hill farming, the typical cost of cultivation is high. So you have to look at growing high value crops.
Okay, and there are several questions on the same topic. How do you improve the shelf life of organic fruits, vegetables, and other products?
See, I think typically organic products, generally, particularly fruits, vegetables, tend to have little longer shelf life because of the cultivation conditions, etc. But other than that, it's like normal. So one is, I think, either you have a proper cold chain system, which in India is still not very well developed. And even if it is developed, the consumers are not willing to pay additional price for that. So other way is you have to be closer to the market and then make sure that your transportation, it is properly covered with moist cloth or whatever, or if it is refrigerated, even better. So that's the only way to do it.
Okay, then one more question, which is looking a favorable question to everyone. We have 5 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres of land in Tamil Nadu. So will you be able to guide us on getting into organic farming? And can we become a part of your supply chain?
See, I think in southern Tamil Nadu, in almost all the districts, we do about 20,000 acres. We have a team of about 7-8 people working there. So if typically, as I said, we do as projects. So if it is, let's say, closer to our existing projects, we can easily add. But if it is a new area, then if the crops are something which we require, then we'll have to work with a group of farmers, so that minimum we start with at least 300-400 acres. in not necessarily one village, but in about 3-4 villages at least. Then we can put a full-time person and then guide. Otherwise, it becomes a little difficult for us.
Okay. And this is a program from a youngster. Is internship possible in your organization in organic farming?
We do take interns, primarily, I think, people in the final semester, but typically at least it has to be minimum 3 months or so. Yeah.
Okay.
So they can apply, and then if we have vacancies, we will definitely look at it.
Sure.
Keep doing it.
Okay. And then there's one question from Mr. Palaniyappan Kumarappan. So he said that all along our land has been inorganic. So now if we have to convert it into organic, so what is the process involved and what is the time frame required?
So typically the certification process is 3 years. See, if you start organic today, then you have to enroll in the certification program. So there are private agencies, and also the Tamil Nadu government has also got a certification agency. So you have to enroll, and only at the end of 3rd year it becomes organic. So that's when you can start claiming as organic and selling it as organic. So from day one, you have to stop using fertilizer, pesticide. So initially for first 2 years or so, the yields could little bit drop based on how good or bad your soil is. Then for most areas, what we have seen is by 3rd year, we are able to get normal yields. So, but you'll have to build, let's say, a lot of compost, then right kind of varieties which grow under organic conditions. So all these things one has to do.
Okay. Then one more question is, we find it difficult to trust organic food in India for no other reason but for the lack of trustworthy organic standards certifications. Are there any local organic certifications that can be trusted?
See, India, I think we have what we called National Program for Organic Production. So this is called NPOP standard, and the logo is India Organic. This is administered by APIDA. So there are about 20-25 certification agencies which are accredited by APIDA to inspect and certify. So having said that, yes, there's always scope for people to play mischief. That's definitely possible, like any other standard or certification, not necessarily organic. So that's why it becomes, one is our own conviction that we do the right things. That becomes very important. And as I said, like there's a saying, you can fool few people all the time, all people few times, but not all people all the times. So if you are building a business which has to last for a long time, then you have to be ethical. You have to also follow all the best practices. So the standards are laid out. There are certification agencies who come and inspect and certify. But equally important is our own ethical standards when we do this. So these 3 things are a must.
This is from Mr. Narayanan of E-Road. Do you sell biopesticides and fungicides?
No, we as a conscious policy, we don't sell anything. In fact, there are a lot of companies which approached us saying that you have 2.5 lakh acres, you can sell all this. Our whole philosophy is, how do we minimize the cost of cultivation for the farmers? So if we start doing this, then there's a conflict of interest. Then I'll be trying to always sell. And my own, the purpose for which we established would be defeated. So most of our thing is basically technical training for farmers, how to do best compost, how to control pests and diseases using locally available herbs or other plant materials, etc. That's our primary focus. Only if in a rare event where we are not able to control, then only we advise some biopesticide or biofungicides, which are basically biological interventions. These are naturally occurring fungi or bacteria which act as predators to keep the pests in check. So that's kind of multiplied and then in a concentrated form made is available. So only as an exception we advise, otherwise we don't sell. But we do keep screening. A lot of companies come to us, so we test them in our own demonstration plots, and whatever is good, then at least we know that these companies are
Are you planning to list your company? A loyal customer like me can benefit from your growth.
I don't think we are still in a position to list because we have still a long way to go. Today, I think the listing requirements and for the stock to be actively traded, it's quite stringent. And then, so I guess we are still some time away.
And there are several questions asking for how do we get to know your procuring centers in Tamil Nadu? Or how do you get to know the operational areas of your establishment in and around Tamil Nadu?
I can share my manager's number or email ID, and then they can definitely do that. Or I think they can write to the company. We have a lot of email IDs on our website, etc., or even on the packs, and we'll definitely introduce to the right person in your area.
And this is from Mr. Sambandam in Australia. He was interacting with you earlier. He's asked, is there any dealer for your products in Sydney?
Yes, I think we have a distributor in Australia. So currently our products are available in Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, I think.
Do you teach any course on how to convert an inorganic land into an organic land?
Right now we don't have a course, but I think it's a good idea. Perhaps we should start one.
Okay.
Just for people who are interested, they can always do that. Given we have all become comfortable with online interaction, might be a good idea to start. We'll definitely look at that as an idea.
Right. In my land, if I want to do organic farming, do I get the certification first, or what is the process?
So what you have to do is, when you want to do organic farming, you have to approach a certification agency, and then they will come and do a inspection, and every season they will do this inspections, and then you have to pay the fees, etc., and then can become certified. What we do is group certification. So where I think we get let's say a cluster, and then about 200 300 farmers, and then we do the group certification. In our case, we bear all the certification costs, but as an individual you can always get your farm certified with any of this. To go to APIDA website, there they will have the accredited certification agencies. You can approach them, make an application, pay the fees, then every year they'll come and inspect and certify. Or you can do as a group of farmers also.
This is from Casey again. Does the current contract farming policy enable startup opportunity for non-resident farming businesses?
Yes, I think only NRIs, particularly foreign people with foreign citizenship, can't own land, but you can always do contract farming and procurement. There are no restrictions on that. You can't cultivate on your own also, but you can do contract farming.
Okay, this is again several questions on the same subject. We have small pieces of land. So if we have to get into organic farming, what will be your advice?
I think small farms are definitely easy to convert to organic. But as I said, like farming, like any other activity, requires that full attention. So if you are able to give the required attention, it is definitely possible. As I said, most of our farmers, the average holding is about 5 acres. But when you have a small acreage, and if you are closer to a town and all, my suggestion is look at little value-added crops like fruits, vegetables, where you get better value realization. And then it's a little more tougher, labor intensive, but at least your value realization will be better.
Your views about dried, dehydrated drumstick leaf as a business proposition?
In the last few years, moringa leaf, which is drumstick leaf, it's caught on. So there are a lot of companies which are doing this. So the business is there, but there's also a lot of competition now. And in India, still it's fairly nascent and then small. But abroad, I think there are a lot of brands, a lot of companies producing this.
Is cold storage as a business proposition for organic cultivation a real demand?
See, I think cold storage has only worked for a few commodities. One is, I think, potato, then little bit for chilies, and a few things like that. But otherwise, organic doesn't require any special cold storage. So, like when we store our grains, we use a normal cold storage, but different chambers so that there's no mix up. So otherwise, for organic specific cold storage, I don't think it'll work out. Neither will be viable.
Okay, this is again a very interesting question. I have been all along doing a 9 to 5 job, so I have a passion to become a farmer. What will be your advice?
See, farming, the traditional farming definitely will not be a substitute for your job. I don't think you'll make that kind of income. So if you want to become a farmer, one is it has to be full time, and you have to do a lot of smart farming in terms of one is growing crops which have a good market value, and third is using latest technologies to improve your yield. So it's possible, but then as I said, it's full time, and it will also take 2 3 years for you to turn profitable. You have to also do a little bit diversified farming, because farming is always risky. If there is too much rain, too less rain, it's always a problem. So you'll have to do a little bit diversified farming, and also smart farming today, whether it is precision farming or anything else. So you have to approach it as a business.
Okay. Packed organic food, we are able to identify from the certification information that is printed. Unpacked organic food like vegetables and fruits, how do we know that they are genuine organic foods?
So it's tough. It is primarily like, let's say you're going to a store. So it primarily boils down to your trust in the store, how they're sourcing, where they're sourcing from. But otherwise, I think it's quite possible to pack and brand it. But given that it's still in a very nascent stage, it's going to take time. So today, I think it all boils down to your trust in the store or whoever is selling, whether how genuine they are. Unfortunately, today that's the reality. But as we go along, that also can be branded, packed, and etc.
Uh, do you have any franchising policy or idea in your organization?
See, I think earlier we did franchise our stores, but then we realized that the market is still small, and most of these franchises are not very viable. So that's why I think we decided to set up our own stores. But in future, that's definitely a possibility once we believe that this fine, because ultimately you're taking up a franchisee with someone is taking a franchisee with a view to earn certain returns. So today, I think the market is still not good enough to assure those returns. That's why we are not doing. But at some point in future, definitely it's a possibility.
Okay, this question is from some information that is shared during the presentation. 13 years to make profit seems to be a long time. How did you manage to stay put? In hindsight, now, do you think it could have been reduced?
Two things. I think one is we were pioneers. So when you are pioneering something, this is the problems you have to go through. Because today, if I had started the same business today, perhaps I would have taken 2 or 3 years to become profitable. But I think that time we had nothing. We have to develop the entire ecosystem. We have to convince the farmers. We have to convince consumers. So that was a huge challenge because it took us a long time. And second is, any branded business will require a lot of investment. And building a brand is time consuming and also consumes a lot of money. So I think that's another thing. If we had done only ingredients or trading in commodities, perhaps we would have started making money in about 4 5 years time. But since we took this decision to do the brand, that's taken as a long time. So any branded business is going to take a much longer time. And in this period, primarily we have to raise money. So we have two private equity venture capital investors in the company. So we were able to raise money, and because of that, we were able to sustain. Because going and taking loans was not an option, because when you don't have profits, then you can't repay these loans, right? So we had to dilute our equity and then get venture capital companies on board to invest.
This is the last question. Um, okay, there's one more question that's come up. The previous question was, are you looking for any supply chain in Midwest of US?
Right now, no, we are mostly exporting from India. But at some point, in fact, we were looking at sourcing peanuts in the US. So if someone can grow organic peanuts and give, we'd be happy to look at it. We were sourcing some oils for the US market within US, whatever, sunflower oil, canola oil, etc. So definitely we are open to it as long as it fits in within our product portfolio and we are able to get the right quality. So we on and off we have discussed with a few farmers, but nothing much has happened other than these things. But we are definitely open to it.
Um, okay, what do you think is the future of retailing of processed organic food?
I think that is definitely the future, but it is also going to take a long time for it to become a viable business. Because I think when people start organic, they start with the basic things like rice, flours, basic spices, basic oils. And once they get used to it, then they start moving to uh, processed products. But I guess that is the future. So people can start working on it, but then you have to do it, make sure that you do it in a way that you don't burn out yourself.
Okay. This is before doing your IIM. Did you are you an agricultural graduate, sir?
Yes, I come from a farming family. I also did my BSc Agriculture from Rajendra Nagar, Andhra Pradesh Agriculture University.
All right. So the last question for this session is, how did this COVID-19 affected your business?
Uh, Actually, I think this month, particularly April, has been good for us. There's been a lot of demand for our products, and because of the dedicated team we have been able to ramp up our production and almost get normal production this month. And what we are also seeing is a lot more consumers have become interested in organic. So we are able to get new consumers to try our products. So far, I think the experience has been good. But if things become adverse, then obviously there could be some supply chain gaps, etc. But at least the first month we have managed it well, and we don't see much impact.
All right. So let me formally thank Raj. So this was an interesting session. You gave a lot of insights into this uh, agri venture industry, starting from the basic of your entrepreneurship journey, that if not now, when to become an entrepreneur. And similarly, you also explained the importance of being asset light. Even today, after 14 years of operation, how to be an asset light. So it was a very interesting session and lot of I'm sorry. So a lot of insights into it. So definitely several of our members who are holding a lot of land bank and who also manufacture in a small way a lot of organic products. They'll be looking forward to connect with your supply chain at some point of time. So with a short notice of time through KC, so we were able to reach you, and it was so nice of you to have agreed to our request and to address the members of our Nagarathar Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much, Raj, and thank all the participants for being through the session. And if you have any other questions, you can post it offline to us, and we will have it replied to you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you, and wish you all the best and then safe and healthy next few months. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah.